Well, there's been a lot of drama about the January 6th commission. First, Nancy Pelosi preemptively said she was going to put Republicans on as part of her selections. It's fairly unusual, and she picked Liz Cheney famously as one of them. And then Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the Republicans, said, well, I'm mad about that, and then I'm going to put people on, which he has a right to do. And then he put on a couple of folks there that deny that that Joe Biden has won the election. They think Donald Trump has, and they continue to lie about that. So that created drama. And then Pelosi came back and said, oh yeah, well then I'm not gonna put them on the commission because they're there to undermine it, not to help it and support it and be honest actors in it. And then Kevin McCarthy said that was unprecedented and took grave offense at it. And then apparently Pelosi called him a moron, although there's now some dispute over that, but certainly would have been within her rights to say that. And now the latest twist in that is today we find out Kevin McCarthy joked around about taking the gavel from Nancy Pelosi and hitting her with it. And that has obviously caused some consternation, especially in light of the violence that happened in Congress on January 6th, which leads us back to the commission. And John Halterwanger is going to join us. He's a senior politics reporter for Insider. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And so first thing I want to start with is this whole idea of Kevin McCarthy clutching his pearls saying, I can't believe Nancy Pelosi wouldn't accept these Congress people that we put on the commission who don't even think there was a problem on January 6th other than the fact that these poor political prisoners weren't allowed to execute Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. John, I don't know how to have that conversation because it's such an absurd point that previously in a sane world, we wouldn't have a conversation about, but now we have to have a debate over. And so, okay, how do you cover that? Do you have to, when you're writing for Insider, do you have to give legitimacy to McCarthy's absurd point about having those people on the commission?
Well, I think we need to provide important context here, which is that McCarthy himself could be a material witness. He could potentially be subpoenaed in this investigation because he spoke to Trump on January 6th. So we have people here who were at least complicit in amplifying Trump's lies about the election, involved in this process. McCarthy at the top of the list, as was Jim Jordan, one of the people he tried to recommend for this committee, and Jim Banks. These were two people who objected to the election results. We've seen Jim Jordan in other congressional hearings basically derail the proceedings with circus-like antics. So McCarthy essentially selected two people, at least two, that he knew Pelosi wouldn't stomach. And it was an easy way for him to go turn around and say, well, this is a completely partisan committee. They're not trying to get down to the truth of things. When in fact, it was the Republican Party the whole time that has tried to block any real or substantive investigations into January 6th. I mean, if you're a Republican and a Trump loyalist and you support such an investigation, in a sense, you are supporting something that could be a self-indictment based on how many Republicans were very complicit in amplifying Trump's lies about the election. So in terms of covering this, I think that we have to provide that context. We have to note that Republicans have pushed against every single opportunity to really look into this deeply. The Senate Republicans blocked an effort to establish an independent bipartisan commission, similar to what we saw with the 9/11 commission, that would really try to get to the bottom of this. Now they turn around and complain that this House Select Committee, which was basically the alternative to a bipartisan commission, is far too partisan, but they prohibited or derailed an effort to actually establish an independent commission.
It's hard to argue in favor of a bipartisan committee after you voted against it. So, and that's what happened with the Republican Party here, and those are facts. I know most Republican voters don't care about facts anymore, but they still matter to the rest of us. So now, at the same time though, John, sometimes there are committees that are really necessary and are because of some sort of national emergency. So 9/11 commission, and that had its issues too, but it didn't break down along Republican and Democratic lines because that was an attack from outside the country against all of us, right? And then even though it involved a Republican politician, the commissions that they put together after the Watergate scandal actually proposed some really great campaign finance reform proposals, et cetera, and was truly bipartisan. So there's that school of commissions that are actually trying to get something done and are real. On the other hand, we have to be honest, there's a whole bunch of commissions that are nonsense and totally partisan. So 9 different ones, I think, on Benghazi. I started to lose count. And a totally fake one on the IRS. I mean, the Republicans who put together, they called in like Diamond and Silk during the Trump years to have an investigation of whether they were being discriminated against by the social media platforms. Again, as always, evidence-free, facts-free, et cetera, right? And it's not that Democrats are beyond doing partisan investigations. They've done their fair share back in the day as well. So this one is a national security issue. The Capitol was breached. We're headed towards what we're worried about is more political violence. That was certainly a form of political violence. On the other hand, would the Democrats gain from the commission? Well, politically, they could gain from the commission. And are the Republicans against it politically? Of course, they're the ones who did the January 6th, and they're the ones who helped, aided, and abetted in every way. So how in the world could you do a nonpartisan commission on this?
It's a very good question. I mean, these are the types of questions that are coming up while the committee is contemplating who to subpoena. This is unprecedented. They might have to subpoena, sitting members of Congress to come in and talk about an attack on Congress. That is why this is so bizarre, and we're really in uncharted territory. And they're not sure. Adam Schiff, one of the members on the committee, who is has deep prosecutorial experience and was involved in the Trump's impeachment, et cetera. He said he's not quite sure if they can actually, legally compel GOP members of Congress to come forward as witnesses if they refuse to comply with subpoenas. So no matter what, you're right. There are just partisan elements to all of this, which is quite unfortunate because of how unprecedented this event was. I mean, if you did sit and listen to the testimony of these 4 police officers last Tuesday during the first hearing on the committee, it was extraordinarily jarring. I mean, they were pelted with racial epithets. Their lives were threatened. They were mercilessly beaten with their own weapons. And this is, the apparently or supposedly Blue Lives Matter party. They're basically denying that this happened to these cops. And meanwhile, they seem to be winning the PR campaign. A poll came out today from Harvard-Harris that showed a majority of Americans think that this committee is too partisan. So to your point, Republicans seem to be convincing Americans that this committee is really not getting down to the truth because it is effectively democratically led, despite the fact that there are 2 Republicans sitting on the committee.
Yeah, well, look, part of the problem is the media creating a fetish around bipartisanship. So what if it's not bipartisan? The Republicans have lost their minds. They're the ones who did January 6th in the first place. So why? It's like saying we did a bipartisan commission to find out who the serial killer was, and we put Hannibal Lecter on the commission. Oh, you didn't put Hannibal Lecter on the commission? Nah, this is not bipartisan. Bipartisan would have been better. Would it? Would it? Doesn't it kind of depend? But John, like real quick on this though, but the media does. My whole life they've been obsessed with bipartisanship, and that's part of the problem. Like the bill is a much bigger problem. Like, is it bipartisan or is it not? Who cares? What's in the bill, right? We don't ask what's in the bill. We ask if it's bipartisan, and that's what's led to a who cares about facts, and so we have to assure that the Republicans are going to go along, and that's become counterproductive.
I think you're right. I think both siding this issue would be detrimental on the part of the media for providing Americans the truth about what's occurring here. And the truth is that the Republicans at the highest level who are trying to denigrate this committee were the ones very close to Trump on and around January 6th in terms of his effort to overturn the election. And a lot of them actually, in fact, in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, were decrying what happened. Kevin McCarthy included. He said that Trump bore responsibility for what happened, but they changed their tune within just a few weeks when Trump was facing impeachment. And these are things that I think as reporters, we do need to continue to call out. Just to remind folks that yes, Republicans have reasons to try to derail this committee because it's very embarrassing and uncomfortable for them based on what occurred on January 6th.
I gotta ask you one more question, but I can't help but editorialize that politicians are tremendous liars. Part of the problem for the mainstream media is they take them at face value. And that's partly what's driven the right wing nuts. They think, well, I know politicians aren't honest. So when media tells me they're honest, I got to look for a different answer. And that's led them to satanic child sex trafficking rings as a potential second answer, and Trump and his con and all that stuff. No, politicians are not honest. And that's why I mentioned Democrats did their fair share of partisan nonsense investigations too. So anyways, but the question though, John, is what are they trying to find out with this commission? I mean, it's generically truth and it's compelling to see the police tell us that, et cetera. But are there 1 or 2 points of fact that we don't yet know that would make some difference, and what difference that would be?
I think that's a very fair question based on the fact that we can already connect a lot of dots based on what we know in terms of Trump's weeks-long effort to overturn the election, the fact that he basically circled the date for January 6th and advertised a wild rally on Twitter. I mean, there are a lot of things about this that we know, like this is more or less what he hoped would occur. He was pressuring Mike Pence to try to overturn the election, even though Mike Pence didn't have any authority to do so. He was openly trying to pressure election officials in various states to overturn the election. We know that he was trying to pressure DOJ officials to proclaim that the election was corrupt. So I think what we're trying to get to the bottom of here is who internally might have aided in that process. What kind of planning were white nationalist groups doing in the lead up to January 6th? And were they actually coordinating with any sitting lawmakers? That would be very concerning. And also, we're trying to figure out what happened in terms of the security failures. Law enforcement had real warnings about the potential for violence at the Capitol on January 6th, and they clearly were not prepared. Definitely not in the same way that we saw in terms of the show of force for various Black Lives Matter protests over the summer. So these are the type of things that they're trying to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, that's an important question. I want to know why there weren't more cops there and who told them to not follow regular order. Because regular order is, if there's a tiny bit of threat to your life, just kill, kill, kill. I've seen it 1,000 times in 1,000 videos in the streets, right? But in this case, no, let them kick your ass and run over you. Why? Why? Was there a no-shoot order? Why was there a no-shoot order? And so those are things I care about. And most importantly to me, who ordered the National Guard in and when? Because it appears that the president did not order the National Guard in, and full well knowing that the lives of legislators were on the line, and that is important. That is very important. And again, I know that Republicans just don't care about facts anymore, and they'll deny it. It doesn't matter. You could have every single person say it that was there; they still will deny it. But for the rest of us, the truth matters. And if the vice president ordered the National Guard in to stave off his own execution as part of the issue there, it's also relevant that we had a president that was so mentally deranged that the military would not listen to him. And that's an interesting point too, and I'd love to see if they figure that out. All right, John, we're way over time, but thank you for joining us on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.